So, with the sincere, simple, yet steadfast love that Hoi-ca has for Hung, could she gradually reach the heart of his mother, one filled with prejudice? Could a woman who has endured so much loss like Ca slowly find her place in a family that has long struggled to accept the past of others? And now, her adoptive mother, the one person who has always stood by her, after learning the truth about Hung's past, will she keep her promise to stay silent, or will she decide to step forward and speak up for the daughter she considers her own? The storm may not be over yet, but there are hearts still holding on, quietly, faithfully, and with unwavering love. Stay tuned for the next episode, where relationships begin to shift, and long-hidden truths come to light. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss the upcoming emotional turns. Hello everyone! It's a pleasure to see you again on my channel. Today, I'm bringing you another chapter in the emotional story of single mother Ly Hoi-ca and a kind-hearted police officer named Hung. In the previous episode, we witnessed a major turning point when Hung's mother discovered that her son had been frequently visiting and helping a woman she had never approved of, Ly Hoi-ca. In her eyes, Hung is a talented, educated man with a stable career, someone who deserves a woman of equal status, not a single mother with a complicated past like Ca. That very belief caused her great displeasure and resentment. She felt that Hoi-ca was unworthy of entering her family. From that moment on, she began scheming, looking for ways to break apart the relationship between Hung and Ca, even if it meant hurting her own son. So what will Hung's mother do to stop this relationship? Will she confront Ca directly, or will she choose a more subtle yet cruel approach? As for Ly Hoi-ca, a woman who has long been accustomed to sacrifice and hardship, can she remain strong in the face of harsh opposition from the family of the man she loves? Is the sincere love between her and Hung strong enough to overcome prejudice, the weight of the past, and the gap between their social standings? Today's story will unveil intense new developments. Stay tuned to find out whether love can truly overcome the storm, or if it will be drowned by judgment and family pressure. After many days of silently observing, Hung's mother finally discovered the exact location where Ly Hoi-ca was living, a small shack tucked away near the edge of a dike, where she and her child were barely getting by. She couldn't accept the fact that her son, an educated, successful man with a promising future, kept visiting and helping a woman who had nothing, a woman once rumored to have borne a child out of wedlock. At first, she tried to reason with him gently. Then came the warnings, the prohibitions. But nothing worked. The more she forbade him, the more silently defiant Hung became. He continued visiting Ca, helping her pull weeds, carrying water, buying porridge for her child whenever the boy had a fever. Every small act of kindness from her son made her feel like she was gradually losing control. No longer able to wait, Hung's mother decided to confront Ca directly. That afternoon, as Hoi-ca finished tending to her vegetable garden, she saw a woman standing at the entrance, sharp features, eyes full of disdain. Ca immediately recognized her. It was Hung's mother. Without a single greeting or formality, the woman strode up, looked Ca squarely in the eyes, and said coldly, "I came here to be clear with you. You should know your place. My son is not someone just anyone can reach for. He's educated. He has a future. And you're just a woman with a scandalous past, no husband, no home, no name. Do you really think someone like you deserves him?" Ca stood frozen. Her words sliced through her like a blade. But she forced herself to stay composed, responding with a trembling voice. "There's nothing between me and Hung. He's only been helping my child and me out of kindness. I've never overstepped that line." But the woman smirked, eyes full of scorn. "You think I believe that? I forbid you from seeing my son again. And if you have even a shred of decency, you'll keep your distance. I refuse to let my family be humiliated by tying ourselves to someone like you." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Ca standing there, clutching her chest, holding back sobs that burned with pain and humiliation. Inside the shack, her child let out a faint cry, as if sensing the silent ache in his mother's heart. Ca knew she had done nothing wrong. But to people like Hung's mother, her very existence was already considered a mistake. As soon as she returned home, Hung's mother erupted in fury. The door had barely closed behind her when she called out loudly for Hung, her voice seething with anger and authority. "Have you lost your mind, Hung? How many times have I told you, someone like that woman has no right to step foot into this house? How dare you keep seeing her?" Hung stood motionless, his gaze gradually darkening. He had always known his mother was conservative, but he never imagined she would go so far as to confront a woman who had done nothing wrong and speak to her with such cruelty. He tried to remain calm and asked quietly, "Mom, did you go see her?" She didn't bother to hide it, her voice only grew louder. "Yes, I went there myself to put her in her place. I won't let you throw your future away over a moment of pity. And let me make this clear, I've already spoken with Mr. and Mrs. Trias' family. You will marry their daughter this year. The wedding must be held soon. Their family is well matched to ours, educated, wealthy, respectable. That's the kind of woman you deserve." Upon hearing that, Hung clenched his fists. His chest burned with anger. Every word his mother spoke was like a knife slashing at his pride, and more painfully, at the heart that had begun to soften for a woman named CA. "Mom, I'm an adult. Marriage and happiness are my choices, not some agreement between two families. You have the right to disapprove, but you don't have the right to insult someone, especially someone you've never truly taken the time to know." But his words only made his mother more furious. She pointed a finger at him and shouted, "So now you're talking back to your own mother because of some homeless woman who got pregnant out of wedlock? Is that how little my words mean to you, Hung?" The atmosphere in the house turned suffocating. Hung said nothing, but his mind was in turmoil. He had never been good at expressing emotions, and he never thought he'd fall for someone like Lai Hai Ca, but in this moment, knowing that his mother had hurt her, his heart ached deeply. He imagined Ca's sorrowful eyes, her trembling hands clutching her little child, and the helplessness she must have felt in the face of such unprovoked cruelty. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Not at his mother, but at himself, for failing to protect Ca from those cutting, unjust words. That day, Hung's mother left home early to visit and care for her youngest daughter, who had just given birth in a district far away. As soon as he knew his mother was gone, Hung took the chance to visit Hai Ca. For days now, he hadn't had a moment of peace. The image of Ca with her head bowed, eyes red from humiliation, haunted him night after night in his restless sleep. From afar, he spotted her watering vegetables behind the house, her slender frame bathed in the soft afternoon sun. Hung approached gently and called out, "Ca." She turned around, a bit surprised, but still greeted him with a soft smile. It was as if she had expected him to come. Without any small talk, Hung got straight to the point, his eyes filled with regret. "I'm sorry for what my mother said. I know she hurt you. Her words were harsh, and I can't change her way of thinking overnight. But I hope you won't be too upset." Hai Ca shook her head slightly, her voice light but seasoned with experience. "It's okay. I understand. She's just trying to protect her son. I'm used to it. I've been judged and looked down on before, so it didn't surprise me. I just don't want you to be caught in a difficult place." Her words made Hung's heart ache. The more he listened, the more he admired and hurt for the woman standing in front of him, someone who had endured so much bitterness, yet still held on to gentleness and grace. Without another word, he rolled up his sleeves and helped her repair the crumbling back wall of the house. They worked together all afternoon, while the child's soft laughter echoed from the front porch. As they neared the end of their work, Hung stood up, brushed the dust off his hands, then suddenly turned and held CA's hand in his. His hand was warm, and his eyes were full of sincerity. "CA, I care about you. Deeply. And your little one, too. Please don't push me away anymore. I don't care about your past, what you've been through. I just want to be part of your life from now on. Let me in." CA stood silent. Inside her heart, the wall she had built for years, those layers of armor forged through hardship, suddenly crumbled. No one had ever said such words to her before. No one had ever looked at her without judgment, without pity, only with warmth and genuine respect. She nodded gently, tears shimmering in her eyes, a faint but deeply moved smile appearing on her lips. "You know, this is the first time someone has ever said they truly care about me." And in that moment, under the fading golden sunset by the quiet dike, two hearts that had long been lonely and wounded finally found each other. As for CA, after Hung's mother left, she sat in silence for a long time. The harsh, condemning words weren't the first she'd heard in her life, but they still made her heart ache as if being squeezed tight. Not because of the contempt, but because of the helplessness she felt, knowing that the man she loved was being forced into a painful choice between family loyalty and affection. Yet instead of collapsing or resenting anyone, CA only reminded herself to grow stronger. She knew clearly, if she didn't fight, if she didn't stand tall with her own hands, the world would forever look down on her. She didn't want her child to grow up in poverty. Even more, she didn't want Hung's love for her to be seen as pity. From that day on, CA worked even harder. She accepted any job she could find, as long as it was honest work. No matter how exhausting or dirty, she never turned it down. At dawn, when the morning mist still clung to the fields, she would carry a basket to the lotus pond, picking each flower one by one to sell at the market. By noon, she followed villagers to fish in ponds, waded through the mud to gather snails. Some days, her entire body was covered in grime, but she still smiled when she sold a few kilos of fresh catch. In the evening, she helped neighbors with laundry, volunteered for heavy lifting or garden cleanup, whatever they needed. Her hands grew calloused, her shoulders thin and darkened from the sun. But her eyes only grew brighter, more resolute, like a quiet flame burning within a woman shaped by hardship, who no longer lived merely to endure, but to rise. Each day she returned home drained, her limbs heavy with fatigue. Yet just seeing her child's innocent smile, seeing their modest but warm little shelter, was enough to lift her spirit. And whenever she remembered the trusting gaze in Hung's eyes, she would whisper to herself, "I have to live with dignity. Not just for my child, but for the one who believes in me." In the midst of hardship, CA was not only raising a child, she was also nurturing her own hope, dignity, and strength to reclaim her life. Ever since his mother left to care for his younger sister in a faraway district, Hung had taken advantage of every break to visit and help CA. He didn't just take on heavy tasks like carrying bricks, digging soil, or fixing the leaky roof. He also quietly tended to the smallest details, replacing a broken faucet, patching up the tin roof, or buying extra formula and diapers for the newborn. There was no need for many words. Just through his gentle gaze, the way he carefully took the baby from CA's arms whenever she needed her hands free, or how he softly lulled the child to sleep in his arms, anyone watching could clearly see, his affection was real. On days when he had more time off, Hung would invite CA and her child over to his home. Not a lavish villa, just a small, old house inherited from his father, a place where he lived alone. He would cook a few simple dishes, clean up thoroughly, prepare everything thoughtfully, and only then call CA to come over. At first, CA was hesitant, but slowly, she began to feel the sincere warmth in every gesture he made. He never showed pity, never rushed or pressured her, only stayed quietly by her side, sharing bit by bit in the heavy burdens of her life. And Hung loved the child as if it were his own flesh and blood. Whenever the baby cried, he never panicked, he would pick him up, rock him gently, and hum a lullaby. On some days, the little one would fall sound asleep in his arms, tiny hands gripping Hung's finger tightly, as if unwilling to let go. In those moments, looking at the three of them, a genuine man, a strong woman, and an innocent child, one might easily mistake them for a true family, whole and peaceful amidst an unpredictable world. Though they both knew that challenges still lay ahead and society's judgments had yet to fade, in this very moment, in a humble home, beneath a moss-covered roof, where soft babbling and tender glances were exchanged, a quiet happiness was beginning to take root. A small beginning, for what could become a real family. Ever since his mother left to care for his younger sister in a faraway district, Hung had taken advantage of every break to visit and help Hoi-ca. He didn't just take on heavy tasks like carrying bricks, digging soil, or fixing the leaky roof, he also quietly tended to the smallest details, replacing a broken faucet, patching up the tin roof, or buying extra formula and diapers for the newborn. There was no need for many words. Just through his gentle gaze, the way he carefully took the baby from Ca's arms whenever she needed her hands free, or how he softly lulled the child to sleep in his arms, anyone watching could clearly see, his affection was real. On days when he had more time off, Hung would invite Ca and her child over to his home. Not a lavish villa, just a small, old house inherited from his father, a place where he lived alone. He would cook a few simple dishes, clean up thoroughly, prepare everything thoughtfully, and only then call Ca to come over. At first, Ca was hesitant, but slowly, she began to feel the sincere warmth in every gesture he made. He never showed pity, never rushed or pressured her, only stayed quietly by her side, sharing bit by bit in the heavy burdens of her life. And Hung loved the child as if it were his own flesh and blood. Whenever the baby cried, he never panicked, he would pick him up, rock him gently, and hum a lullaby. On some days, the little one would fall sound asleep in his arms, tiny hands gripping Hung's finger tightly, as if unwilling to let go. In those moments, looking at the three of them, a genuine man, a strong woman, and an innocent child, one might easily mistake them for a true family, whole and peaceful amidst an unpredictable world. Though they both knew that challenges still lay ahead and society's judgments had yet to fade, in this very moment, in a humble home, beneath a moss-covered roof, where soft babbling and tender glances were exchanged, a quiet happiness was beginning to take root. A small beginning, for what could become a real family. In the days that followed, the bond between Hung and Hoi-ca grew stronger than ever. He no longer hid his feelings, no longer hesitated to hold her hand in the front yard, or embrace the child as if it were his own. As for Ca, once cautious and self-conscious, she was beginning to believe, perhaps she did deserve a small piece of happiness, after so many years battered by life's storms. They lived simply, sharing modest meals, tending the garden together in the afternoons, and gently lulling the baby to sleep in their tiny room. Everything felt peaceful, so peaceful it almost seemed the hardships were finally behind them. But peace, as always, was fleeting. From the rural village where she was staying with her youngest daughter, Hung's mother, during a casual phone call to a neighbor, happened to hear troubling news. Not only had her son continued seeing Ca, but he had even let her stay at his home to care for him while he was injured. The neighbor's vague, judgmental storytelling, laced with gossip and prejudice, ignited her fury. A woman who once bore a child out of wedlock, and she dares to come to my house? As if she's already our daughter-in-law? She hung up, her eyes cold as ice. Only one thought remained in her heart: she must return. She had to put an end to this wrongful relationship before it went any further. Back at home, Hung was still unaware that a storm was coming. But deep inside, something told him this peace wasn't going to last. When he's once again forced to face his mother, what will Hung choose? Will he have the courage to stand up for the woman he loves and the child he now sees as his own? Can such humble, sincere love withstand the weight of rejection, societal judgment, and generational conflict? Join us in the next episode to witness how love is tested once more, and perhaps, where truth is finally given a voice.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người, mình vừa mới hoàn thành xong video của Lý Hoài Ca và Cảnh sát Hùng. Thì mình sẽ kiểu làm từ đầu câu chuyện luôn để cho mọi người có thể xem từ đầu đến cuối câu chuyện cho nó dễ dàng á. Thì hôm nay thì nó sẽ lên là tập 3. Thì mọi người sẽ cũng có thể thấy là bây giờ thì mình sẽ lên xen kẽ giữa cả Lý Hoài Ca và Lý Tử Diệp luôn, chứ không phải lên một nội dung nữa. Tại vì thực sự thì nội dung Lý Tử Diệp thì thường thì nó sẽ ra khá là chậm, nên là mình cũng phải kiểu theo kịp tiến độ. Mình cũng không thể nào mà làm trước được, nên mình sẽ xen thêm Lý Hoài Ca vào. Và nếu trong thời gian tới mình có thể xen thêm nhiều câu chuyện nữa vào để cho mọi người cùng xem và cùng thưởng thức những câu chuyện khác. Tại vì những câu chuyện khác nó cũng rất là hay và ý nghĩa, cũng như câu chuyện của mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca và Cảnh sát Hùng thì cũng là một câu chuyện rất hay. Mình rất mong là nhận được sự ủng hộ của mọi người và mong rằng những video tiếp theo thì mọi người sẽ tiếp tục ủng hộ cho kênh mình nữa.